Brothers, let's talk about something that doesn't make sense at first glance, but once you see it, you'll never unsee it again. You've been raised to believe that being caring, attentive, generous, and emotionally available makes you the man women want. You were told, be nice to her, give her attention, show her you care. And yet, what happens? The guy who showers her with love gets ghosted. The one who checks up on her every hour gets blocked. The man who bends over backwards to please her gets cheated on. But the man who barely responds to her texts? The man who doesn't rearrange his life around her mood swings? The one who seems almost indifferent? That's the one she obsesses over. That's the one she chases. That's the one she loses sleep over. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Women prefer men who don't care, at least not in the way society taught you to care. Not because women are evil, but because their psychology is wired to test strength, to seek out scarcity, and to crave what isn't easily handed to them. Let's break it down into 7 raw truths you won't hear in church, in school, or in most YouTube videos. These are the truths women live by, but will never admit out loud. Point 1. Attention is her drug, and scarcity is the dealer. If you've ever wondered why a woman seems bored with you after you give her constant attention, it's because you become the dealer who gives the addict free supply. No addict respects the dealer who hands out drugs for free. She respects the one who makes her chase, who makes her pay a price, who makes her earn every dose. When you text her, good morning, beautiful, every day without fail, it feels sweet at first. But soon, she stops replying. Why? Because the dopamine hit is gone. It's predictable. She knows she can have you anytime. But when another man sends that same message only once in a while, or not at all, she feels a rush. The scarcity creates value. Think about it. How many times have you seen a woman complain, he never texts me first, but I can't stop thinking about him? Or he's so cold, but I just wanted to care. Meanwhile, the man texting her paragraphs, pouring out his heart, he's sitting there wondering why she barely acknowledges him. Here's the bitter truth. Abundance devalues, scarcity increases worth. Women crave the man whose attention is limited because it feels like a prize. Men who don't care appear scarce, so she assigns more value to their presence. Point 2. Women respect boundaries more than kindness. A man who doesn't care in the way most men do is usually a man with boundaries. He doesn't cancel his gym session because she suddenly just wants to hang out. He doesn't let her guilt him into skipping his work grind just because she's having a bad day. He doesn't throw away his dignity to prove his loyalty. Women will never tell you this, but they test you constantly. That "can you come over now?" text at midnight. That "if you really cared, you'd do this for me" line. That jealous accusation, designed to see if you'll grovel and explain yourself. These are not random moments. These are tests of your strength. When you fold, when you rush to explain, when you bend your schedule to fit hers, she may smile, but deep down, respect leaks out of her heart. But when you stand firm, when you say, "No, I can't, I've got things to handle," something shifts. She might pout, she might argue, she might even throw a tantrum. But later, when she's alone, she'll think, damn, he's unshakable. He's not desperate. He's not controlled by me. And here's the paradox. She will value your no more than she values your constant yes. Women prefer men who don't care about pleasing them 24/7, because those men are living for themselves, not for her approval. That strength creates respect, and respect fuels attraction. Point 3. Indifference triggers her competitive instinct. Here's a truth most men never catch. Women are competitive by nature when it comes to love. They may not compete in the way men do, through direct confrontation, but they compete through desire. The moment a man is hard to get, her instincts kick in. Other women might want him. I need to secure him. This is why the so-called bad boy archetype never dies. He's detached, he doesn't overinvest, he seems unbothered, and women chase him, even when he treats them poorly, not because they enjoy pain, but because indifference lights up their competitive drive. It makes them want to win him. Think of the times you've heard a woman say, "I know he's not good for me, but I just can't stop thinking about him." Or when a woman suddenly chases after a man she rejected months ago, right when he stops caring and moves on. That's not coincidence. That's her competitive instinct reacting to scarcity and indifference. Meanwhile, the man who begs for her time, who puts her on a pedestal, who makes himself completely available, he doesn't spark competition. He sparks pity. And pity never leads to attraction. Here's the bitter wisdom. Indifference forces her to qualify herself. When you don't care as much, she starts to wonder if she measures up. She begins to chase your validation instead of you chasing hers. Point 4. Women love men who challenge their ego. Here's the harsh truth. Women don't respect men who inflate their ego without resistance. Compliments, constant reassurance, pedestal worship. These things make her comfortable but not attracted. Why? Because she thrives on challenge. She craves a man who doesn't immediately melt at her beauty, who doesn't validate every word she says, who isn't afraid to call her out. That tension feeds her desire. Think about the bad boy cliché. It's not his tattoos or motorcycle. It's the fact that he doesn't fold under her charm. He might even tease her, disagree with her, or ignore her attempts to control the frame. That contrast unsettles her ego, but it keeps her hooked. When a man refuses to play the role of cheerleader, she feels the need to earn his attention. And men, this is where so many fail. They think being endlessly nice, supportive, and predictable guarantees loyalty. No, it guarantees invisibility. She respects a man who isn't afraid to rattle her self-image. That's why she'll tell her girlfriends, "He drives me crazy, but I can't stop thinking about him." Translation, he makes me question myself, and that makes me chase harder. Never forget, she prefers a man who challenges her over the one who worships her. Point 5. Caring too much turns into weakness. Men, listen carefully. A woman will never say this out loud, but when you care too much, when you show her that her every move controls you, she starts to lose respect for you. It's not that caring is wrong. It's when it becomes obsessive, submissive, and suffocating that it turns her off. Picture this. She pulls away emotionally, starts giving you less attention. What do most men do? They chase harder, they beg, they overcompensate with flowers, gifts, long texts. "I just want to fix things." In her mind, that's weakness. She doesn't see a strong man fighting for love. She sees a man who has lost all power and identity outside of her approval. And here's the irony. She tests this behavior on purpose. She'll withdraw, not because she's leaving, but to see if you'll panic. If you do, she knows she owns you. And nothing kills attraction faster than predictability and weakness. Men who care too much end up being emotionally toyed with, taken for granted, and ultimately discarded. Meanwhile, the man who shrugs, who says, "Your mood is your problem, not mine," suddenly becomes magnetic. Why? Because she sees strength. And strength, not excessive caring, is what women are wired to respect. Point 6. Indifference forces her to prove herself. Here's a reality most men refuse to accept. When you show indifference, when you don't overreact to her games, she ends up trying harder to prove her worth. Think of it this way. Attraction isn't built when you're chasing her. It's built when she's chasing you. And nothing flips that dynamic faster than indifference. A woman might test you by being cold, distant, or dismissive. If you respond with desperate energy, she wins. But if you remain calm, unfazed, even amused, suddenly she has to reevaluate. She thinks, "Why isn't he fighting for me? Why doesn't he care?" That confusion stirs her emotions. And men, women need emotional stimulation to feel connected. Indifference forces her to question herself, to chase validation from you. That's why women become obsessed with the men who aren't obsessed with them. Look at celebrities, athletes, powerful men. They aren't begging for female attention. They're selective. They're hard to impress. And that forces women to step up. This doesn't mean you disrespect her. It means you value yourself so highly that you don't bend at her every mood swing. And that confidence shifts the entire dynamic. Suddenly, she's proving herself to you. Point 7. The man who doesn't care can't be controlled. Here's the ultimate reason women prefer men who don't care. They can't control him. A man who isn't emotionally dependent, who doesn't fall apart at her disapproval, who won't beg when she threatens to leave. That man is untouchable. And women respect that deeply, even if they'll never admit it. Control is a silent battlefield in relationships. A woman will test boundaries, push buttons, pull away, even create drama, all to see if she can dominate the frame. The man who cares too much surrenders every time. He adapts, apologizes for things he didn't do, compromises his values just to keep her happy. But the man who doesn't care, he's not reckless. He simply refuses to let her emotional storms dictate his masculinity. If she tries to manipulate with silence, he carries on with his life. If she threatens to walk away, he lets her leave. And here's the twisted truth. When she realizes she can't control him, she desires him even more. Why? Because deep down, women are drawn to men who lead, not men who follow. They'll never say it directly, but they crave the security of a man who can't be swayed by their moods. That man is rare, and that man is always in demand. Men, if this truth hit you hard, it's because deep down you already knew it. You just didn't have the words. Women prefer men who don't care, not because they want cruelty, but because they respect strength. Stop begging. Stop overgiving. Stop letting yourself be controlled. Be the man who values himself above approval. Subscribe, like, comment, and share with brothers and sons who need this truth.